I experience a great piece of art, something inspirational, and for a moment I see the potential within me. I feel fearless and experience the courage to truly take on life. I find myself willing to tackle everything that has ever held me back. And then I lose focus, I strain my back, I experience a small setback, or as is often the case, I feel a strange fear. I secretly don't want to live fully. This sentiment is captured in several cheesy quotes, such as, "It's easier to fall from the first floor than the penthouse suite," or "Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure." Such phrases drift into the Sigma grindset region of the internet, where isolation and self-discipline are championed as ingredients to the good life, in which one becomes a fully self-actualized self. I think anyone truly living fully would quickly abandon this sort of view, seeing the impermanence and lack of fulfillment in constant work and material acquisition. But these quotes offer us an interesting point nonetheless. It is within this strange fear of becoming who we felt we always should be that is holding us back. Why are we afraid of living fully? Through looking at Maslow's self-actualization, we can better understand this fear. The self-actualized experiences a sort of being cognition, where one's perception to the truth of the world, previously concealed by our schemas and ideologies, is suddenly heightened. From this, Maslow suggests that such an individual sees the world in all its awe and beauty. Consequently, they sense their own inner potential and begin to flourish in their relationships and in creative projects. However, Maslow was aware of the fear we may experience in taking on this task of living fully. He even had a name for it, Jonah syndrome. We are just not strong enough to endure more. It is just too shaking and wearing. So often people in ecstatic moments say, "It's too much," or "I can't stand it," or "I could die." Delirious happiness cannot be borne for long. Our organisms are just too weak for any large doses of greatness. It is a fear of losing control, of having our existence become incomprehensible and unmanageable. Both the inner and outer world is overwhelming, and as children we are, as Becker puts it, natural cowards. We quickly find ways to protect ourselves from this overwhelmingness. The great boon of repression is that it makes it possible to live decisively in an overwhelmingly miraculous and incomprehensible world, a world so full of beauty, majesty, and terror that if animals perceived it, all they would be paralyzed to act. Other thinkers have considered this fear also. For example, in Camus' encounter with the absurd, the individual is suddenly placed in a world divested of light and illusion, and can now see the futility of their existence. They realize that their lifelong cry for purpose and truth is met only with the cold silence of the universe. As Becker puts it, it places a trembling animal at the mercy of the entire cosmos. To see the world as it really is may result in existential despair and the sense that one is truly lost. What then is this fear of truly living? If we are to take the existentialist perspective, it is the fear of seeing the world as it is, to no longer deny the fact that everything fades, that death is inevitable, and that no matter what you do, it simply does not matter in the face of the vast and incomprehensible cosmos. It is this brutal insight that we will struggle for 80 years or less in our small little corner of the universe, bickering and fighting and yearning, all for it to be less than a footnote in the history of humanity, let alone the universe itself. Full humanness means full fear and trembling. Is this fear of truly living grounded in confronting the absurd? Who is to say that we even know what such an experience would feel like? Or is it more to do with the fear of detaching from our illusions, the things that have composed us since we were kids? As Ortega wrote, man uses his ideas to frighten away reality. We scurry along into a world of pure abstraction and attempt to solve the mystery of existence through thought. From childhood, we notice the delicacy of our minds in contrast with the brutality of the world. Somebody rejects us, somebody dies, our parents' moods shift rapidly, and so to protect ourselves, we build a wall. This wall gives us something to cling to, whether it is a belief about ourselves or the world. Eventually, as we grow older, these walls become more refined, manifesting into ideologies and schemas. Our mind, increasingly isolated from the brutality of the world, finds itself imprisoned by that which initially served as its guardian. We become aggressive towards anything that threatens that we cling on to, and it is our deepest fear, that is, to return to this vulnerability. The irony of man's condition is that the deepest need is to be free of the anxiety of death and annihilation, but it is life itself which awakens it, and so we must shrink from being fully alive. This is one of the most tragic elements of our existence. We imprison ourselves in these walls. Yes, we live securely and comfortably, we don't question our daily routines, but we also become ever more susceptible to any destabilizing force as our minds weaken within the protection of our own thoughts. Anxiety keeps us in check. It tells us that uncertainty is pain and that living fully will destroy us, and so we rarely travel beyond our own thoughts. Here I find the words of Krishnamurti incredibly relevant, as he suggests fear is grounded in thought, the same thought that guards us from the brutality of the world without illusions. Thought has done this because it always seeks certainty and must achieve certainty at all times. However, there is also the future. The future and thought have a tumultuous relationship. Thought wants certainty, and the future, no matter how well planned, is always unknown. Confronted by the unknown, thought draws the future into the past. The past, at least, is certain, and so one can make predictions based off of their past. They can say, this happened to me in childhood, so this will happen in the future. This can also work with pleasure. Something good happened yesterday, and so thought projects the past into the future, hoping to recreate the same conditions. In both pleasure and fear, there is a continuity, wherein thought brings the future into the past. However, there will always be fear. The past is not always a correct measuring tool for future events, and the mind knows this. And, as previously stated, living in the past heavily restricts someone. It tells them that the world already is a certain way. It tells them that they are already a certain way. We then become restricted by our thoughts, and aware of the inadequacy of finding any certainty in the future, we feel fear. Rather than a solution, the past becomes an unsatisfactory and repressive crutch. This is evident in trauma victims who struggle to see a world or a sense of self in which their past is not also the present and future, and so they are constantly reliving horrific experiences. Krishnamurti asks, can a mind and a heart that remembers the hurts, the insults, the things that have made it insensitive and dull, can such a mind and heart know what love is? What is love? According to him, love is a sort of passion without sorrow. Sorrow stems from those moments in which we have confronted the reality of the world. It is the pain we fear most, the product of involuntarily encountering the world as is. A loved one was taken from us, we were rejected. Sorrow hurts, and so we tend to distract ourselves in thought. Fear is our attempt to control sorrow. If we can predict it, maybe it will lessen the pain. But according to Krishnamurti, when we remain with our sorrow, when we accept it rather than attempt to outthink it, we experience a sort of passion. Instead of trying to outthink, we simply feel. We sit with it. It is simply a new moment among many. Here, we live fully in the present. This is reflected in the words of Ram Dass. When you didn't have a framework, when you didn't have a somebodyness, you were just a part of the universe, and there was no fear. One has to have self-concept to be afraid, and when an organism is functioning instinctively in a scene as an infant, each change in the homeostasis, each change in the balance of the situation is just a new moment. It's just a new moment to which it responds. Ironically, a certain amount of initial anxiety or fear is necessary to live fully. It's a sign that we are drifting from our illusions into uncertainty. It's an act of courage. And if we remain silent so that tomorrow ceases to exist, we notice that the fear tied to the future begins to fade away. The sorrow fades away. Through detaching from our thoughts, from this constant attempt to rationalize and silence our fear, we find out what it means to die. To die is to simply live without a future, without a tomorrow. And, as Krishnamurti writes, to find out what it means to die is to live without fear. This video was sponsored by Blinkist. Are you tired of having a never-ending list of books you want to read but just don't have the time to sit down and get through them all? Well, I've got some exciting news for you. Now there's Blinkist, an app that has completely changed the way I consume books. With Blinkist, you can get through the key takeaways from a wide range of nonfiction books in just 15 minutes or less. That means you can finally make a dent in that reading list without sacrificing all your free time while still allowing you to broaden your horizons and discover new perspectives. Lately, I've been enjoying Krishnamurti's What Are You Doing With Your Life?, a book that explores some of life's most difficult questions. I've appreciated Krishnamurti's concept of conditioning and his direct language when engaging in the issues of love, freedom, and evil. And with Blinkist, I was able to engage with these ideas amongst a pretty crowded schedule. But it's not just about speed. The Blinkist app is super user-friendly and offers a variety of fun features. Take Blinkist Spaces, for example, which allows you to create a space with friends and family where you can add, share, and recommend titles from the Blinkist library all in one place. A space can be for a specific group of people like your friends, or a specific topic like mindfulness. The great thing is that all members of a space have access even if they don't have Blinkist Premium. So why wait? Give Blinkist a try and start making the most of your reading time today. Get 25% off Blinkist Annual Premium. Start your 7-day free trial by clicking the link in the description box.